Hello everyone, and welcome to the Introduction to GIS and Official Statistics webinar, the first webinar in Making Census 2020 Count with GIS webinar series. My name is Richie DeBarra. I'm the marketing specialist here at Esri, and I will be your moderator today. This webinar is being recorded. We will send you out an email afterwards to point you towards the recording if you'd like to view it again or share it with your colleagues. There will be a Q&A section at the end of the webinar. You can type your questions into the question window, and we will address them at the appropriate time. There will also be a poll question giving you the opportunity to interactively respond to the questions and see collective results. Individual results will not be published, just the percent response to each poll question. Today's first presenter will be Mark Saigon. He is a mapping and statistics industry manager here at Esri. He has over 34 years of experience working in GIS and mapping. Mark is actively participating in the United Nations Committee of Experts on Global Geospatial Information Management, UNGGIM, and the Board of Directors for International Map Industry Association for the Americas region. We also have Kristen Hoka. She's a solution engineer on the national government team here at Esri. Kristen supports accounts in the civilian sciences and statistics environment. She has over 8 years of experience in remote sensing and GIS. Her passions are social and natural sciences, field operations, and developing web applications. We also have Linda Peters, who is our Global Business Development Manager for Statistics. Linda is a member of the UNGGIM expert group on the integration of statistical and geospatial information, as well as big data and national reporting platforms working groups. She'll be available to answer any questions you may have at the end of the webinar. Mark, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Richard. Today, we're going to talk about the importance of integrating statistics and geospatial information using geographic information systems, or commonly referred to as GIS. It's an enabling technology to support your pre-enumeration activities. It also enhances your capabilities in enumeration and post-enumeration. We're also going to focus on 3 important goals of national statistical offices in the webinar. Delivering high-quality official statistics to better support decision-making in our countries, optimizing operations, making us more effective and efficient, and leveraging technology to better accomplish the first 2 goals. The integration of geography and statistics is critically important, as described by the United Nations Global Geospatial Information Management, or UNGGIM, a committee of experts under the UN Economic and Social Council. The purpose of this integration is the increased value gained from our data to governments and civil society. Both disciplines of geography and statistics have established structures and standards to enable this integration. Looking on the left are 5 fundamental principles in the Global Statistical Geospatial Framework, which were laid out by the United Nations Expert Group on the Integration of Statistical and Geospatial Information, part of the UNGGIM, and describing how this integration can be achieved. First, the fundamental geospatial infrastructure, essentially a GIS and a geodatabase, so that all of our information can be referenced by location. The next, the geocoded unit record data in a data management environment. Statistical organizations should be collecting all of their information geocoded with geographic coordinates. Next, we have common geographies. This will facilitate the dissemination and correspondence of data between geographies across different census with the consistent boundaries. Interoperability is important between statistical and geospatial data and standards and processes, as well as interoperability with other systems like CRM, Customer Relationship Management, or back office systems like SAP, and statistical packages like R and SAS and SPSS. And of course, all of our data needs to be usable, where feasible, open and free for innovation, effective decision-making, and the societal good. Increasingly, there's a demand for data of smaller areas, and this is again where geography plays a role. Now looking on the right, we see the widely accepted generic statistical business process model as a reference. GIS can enable each of these processes in pre-enumeration and planning, in the designing and building of the pre-enumeration activities, with enumeration in the collection, processing, and analysis of your data, and in post-enumeration, in disseminating your results and the evaluation phase. We'll talk more about how GIS supports the generic statistical business process model in a few minutes. The key to joining our statistical and geospatial data is geographically locating and geocoding the data we collect, particularly building and household data, allowing us to tie census statistical data to geographic areas. GIS gives us the ability to do this. Then we can aggregate and disaggregate the data to varying levels of nested administrative geographies. Integrating geography literally increases the value of our statistical data. So why is it important to integrate geography and statistics? Well, it's to bring better understanding to government decision makers on policies to improve society, our environment, and our economy. A good example is applying your statistical data to monitor and support the decision-making towards achieving the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals that many of your nations have committed to. For example, in the Philippines here, we see the use of GIS and statistics to understand and address many issues, in this case, poverty. By joining the statistical data to geography and using the ArcGIS platform, they can then share this information publicly with civil society, government agencies, and other communities. The Philippines Statistical Organization is part of the United Nations Statistics Division and Esri's Research Institute on the SDGs, with over 15 countries currently participating, but rapidly expanding to over 60 in the next 18 months. It's important to note that the statistics measure the impact of the issues and the geography points to where the issues are. Together, they provide a more powerful tool for decision makers to understand and mitigate the issues. The role of GIS continues to expand in official statistics, and it adds value in the generic statistical business process model. In the past, statistical offices would simply use base maps in the planning of their work or thematic maps for dissemination, and that was great. But now we have the opportunity with the integration of statistical and geospatial information to understand and implement new methods utilizing GIS and spatial thinking in order to maximize our results and optimize our operations, the goals we discussed at the beginning of the webinar. For example, in pre-enumeration with the design and the creation of enumeration areas. In the enumeration phase with the increased use of mobile devices to collect information. And most importantly, how to disseminate this data post-enumeration, making it accessible and usable by government and civil society. Let's take a closer look. At Esri, we see GIS adding value across the statistical business process. The technology can be used in many ways. As we look across the top, on the left, we have mapping and visualization, creating your base map and geocoding all the data collected, as we mentioned earlier. Data management, again, the need for geospatial infrastructure. Field mobility, making maps available online or offline for pre-enumeration and enumeration staff out in the field. The monitoring of data, statistics, and assets. For example, using a survey dashboard for real-time status of census data collection, and an operations dashboard to see where areas workers have completed each day. With analytics, well, for example, looking at survey sample size that we're expecting compared to the previously mentioned dashboard results to make adjustments. As we look across the bottom, we see patterns of design and planning census, decision support through dashboards to adjust operations for under-collected areas or operations that are impeded, providing transparency from executives through to the field, even community engagement through to sharing and collaborating our results. And we see technology is changing what we do consistently and constantly. We look on the left here, we think of the old pen and paper interview forms that we used to use. Now we have multi-modes of collection. We're doing computer-aided personal interviews, computer-aided web interviews, and even telephone interviews. Increasingly, statistical offices are leveraging new technologies, including GIS. The ArcGIS platform can help us transition from that paper-based system to a more modern workflows. This system of record helps you create the accurate, authoritative data for your organization. The ArcGIS system supports your statistical workflows. Services are key, especially map services from your base map, providing access to all your apps. For example, field apps for data collection as well as operations management are key to modernization, including the ability to make your base map data and GIS functionality in an offline mode where you do not have connectivity. All of this with strong security and identity so we can share information in a secure environment. This technology is available on the web, but it's also available to you entirely deployed on your premises. In the planning stage of pre-enumeration, organizations often use Esri's ArcGIS technology to develop a geodatabase, to define census geographies and administrative hierarchies, delineate enumeration areas, and integrate administrative and other data sources. Statistical organizations typically need a large geodatabase that can be edited and used simultaneously by tens of thousands of users. They need a system that supports version control and has the ability to leverage the organization's enterprise relational databases. ArcGIS does this for you. You also need a system that's capable of mapping, geocoding, and increasingly imagery in the use of things like change detection and feature extraction and the creation of the base map data and enumeration areas. For example, identifying new rooftops and where there are new settlements. The ArcGIS system offers all of this functionality, allowing the pre-enumeration planning team to create a single geodatabase that can be leveraged throughout the organization. Efficiency can be planned into the operations by optimizing site placement of field offices, capital, and asset distribution, and taking into account routing of workers. And GIS is used in marketing, helping raise the public awareness of the importance of participating in a census. It can support media campaigns and analyzing what and where to advertise to educate the public. During pre-enumeration, we plan how to best capture our data. A typical census field operations workflow can leverage GIS and apps throughout the process. ArcGIS can be used more efficiently to plan where and what to collect, coordinate with staff, help those staff navigate to the right location, capture data consistently, and throughout the process, monitor operations and ensure communications at all levels. Esri's ArcGIS platform provides configurable apps, making it easy to adapt to your workflow. For example, New Zealand Statistics have configured Collector for ArcGIS to validate the location of buildings and boundaries. My colleague Kristen Holcutt is going to demonstrate some of the capabilities that I've been describing. Kristen?
Thanks, Mark. Now that you've gotten an overview of some of the pre-enumeration and enumeration processes, I'm going to dive into two different configurable applications. One addressing creating work assignments, and the other is location and boundary validation and verification. As a dispatcher, my main job is to make sure my field crew has their assignments for the day. These assignments can be anything from verifying a location or a boundary to doing the survey collections. The assignments are either run during the night while everyone is home for the day, or when I first get into the office. Here on the first page, you can see that some assignments are scheduled amongst the field staff. These assignments can be filtered by status, due date, priority, assignee, and you can assort those. Now, if I want to get a peek into how many assignments each field staff has, or whether they are working or on break or offline for the day, I can navigate over to the Workers tab. Furthermore, I can find out where my staff are located just by clicking on each profile of the individual person. This is great for internal policies, but also for the safety and security of my staff. Now I'm about to create an assignment by clicking on the Add Assignment button here at the top. This will take you to the Create Assignment page. There are a couple required fields to fill out. First is the assignment type. Am I looking to verify a location or a boundary, or am I looking to follow up on a no response? The second field required is the location. By zooming in to a particular area, we can either search for an address or just drop a pinpoint. This will populate either with the address location or street information, or if you're in remote locations, any of the GPS data. Next, you want to assign this to a field staff. Give the assignment a priority, a due date, and a work ID. Here's where you can populate your own, or you can have external systems populate that for you. This, give it a little description, any attachments that are necessary, and then create your assignment. So now that I've created my assignments for the day, let's go see how some of the field crew receive and capture that information. Being a field analyst and receiving my work assignments without even going into the office saves time off my commute, but also allows me to get right to work. By opening up the app on my phone, I'm able to see any of my current projects that I'm working on and see the tasks that have been assigned to me for that day. Once I open up that project, I can see my assignments are broken up by different types of priority here. The ones that are high priority, we know are the ones that I would like to complete first. I can also take a look at assignments based off of distance, due date, date assigned, assignment type, or ones that I've read or didn't read yet. So after I select a task in my content page, I can choose to navigate to that assignment or to collect at that assignment using two separate other mobile applications, or even more. One of those applications is used for the verification and validation of addresses and boundaries, which is the collector application. And the other is used for the survey collection, which is that survey 123. So sometimes based off of the task at hand, I will use one or even both of those in one day. So say that we've already navigated to that location, and now I want to start collecting information. I'm going to go ahead and start this task. And just to give you some perspective, I'll zoom out on the map here. Once I start that task, that field actually turns into a hollow, that symbol turns into a hollow green symbol here. Let's go jump out into our other application, our collector application. So as that field analyst, my first job is to not only verify the locations of buildings and addresses, but also modify the enumeration area boundaries as deemed necessary. So first, let's take a look at this particular building here. And we need to verify that this location is actually a new location or a new building. And we can do that by any of these configurable fields. So is it new? Is it confirmed? I'm going to say that this is a confirmed location. Furthermore, any unique building identifier, this is an apartment address. The unit number. So if there has been new units added and you're confirming a particular and validating a particular address, so type in 301. And from that task information, the street address automatically gets pulled into the collector application. And you can add in the city. And then what is the building classification? And if you scroll through here, you have several different choices that are all configurable as a drop-down. And if that structure is residential, what is that subclass? Well, this is definitely a high-rise apartment building. And scrolling through some of these others, depending on your classification, you would answer those. And then giving it any type of comments. So that work order ID gets populated within the comments field, and you can add any other further additional comments there. And next is the attachments. So this is where the collector application also really shines, is that you can attach a picture of the new location or confirmed location. And just to show and prove that this is a live demonstration here, you can now see my screen that I am presenting on and portions of my desk here at home. We'll go ahead and capture that. Okay. And you will see that now it is attached to that point location. So going back to the map, we have dropped that pin already, but we can also modify any of those service areas here. So let's go ahead and do that. Here are those service areas or the enumeration areas. I selected that particular boundary, and need to activate and edit that feature. So the points there are shown on the map, and just by moving some of these points, let's go back here. Let's select that point, and just by moving them, we can adjust and delete any type of service areas there if necessary, and draw in our own. And then just for time's sake, I'm going to go ahead and complete this. And now that we can switch back over to our workforce application and say that this assignment has now been completed, the map gets updated into my dispatcher and knows that assignment is be completed, and I can move on further along into the process here. So we looked at how do we create assignments and how do we start collecting information to build a foundation of our census operations. Now back to you, Mark.
Thank you, Kristen. So now we'd like to give you the opportunity to give us some of your feedback. We've got a poll question for you. You can see it in your screen there. You can tick one box. So the question we have is approximately what percentage of your field staff do you anticipate using mobile apps in your 2020 round of census? So you can select 75 to 100%, 50 to 75%, 25 to 49%, or less than 25%. And we've got a couple of answers. We've got some of the answers coming in now, and we're going to give you another second. We'll close the poll. All right. And we've got about half of you at 75 to 100%, and the other half at less than 25%. So we've got a bit of a separation there. So interesting. Well, thank you for your feedback. We appreciate that. And again, we'll be answering any of your questions at the end of the webinar, but you're welcome to enter them in as we go in the questions input window there. So next I'd like to talk about, and we'll take those at the end of our session. Next, I'd like to talk about how GIS enhances your enumeration processes. In the enumeration phase, the focus is on the accurate and efficient collection of data. However, project management, worker safety, as Kristen mentioned, asset management, and quality control are also critically important. National statistical offices are leveraging information technology and GIS as they move from paper to digital, to mobile and even online. Japan, Korea, Australia, New Zealand, just to name a few, are active in this transition. Equipping enumerators with mobile field mapping and data collection capabilities allows them to accurately capture, edit, and display information. Equipping supervisors, regional managers, and executives with the right tools are equally important, particularly in project management. For example, the Survey 123 dashboard gives insight into the progress of data collection to the field managers. At the lower right here, we see an operations dashboard from the National Statistics Office of Egypt, the Central Agency for Public Mobilization and Statistics, in their 2017 round of population and housing census. The operations dashboards give executives insight into the performance of their organization, as well as giving managers a window into each aspect of their projects, specifically enabling the monitoring of progress on census operations, the real-time awareness of project status and staff, and decision support for resource allocation. The executive dashboard you see here is from Statistics South Africa and quickly shows how enumeration counts are progressing during the census. Once again, Kristen is going to demonstrate what I'm talking about. Kristen?
Thanks, Mark. In the past, we would have had to fill out a paper form, like this census population survey from Switzerland. Now we can design and support a large amount of survey questions using Survey 123. So this time, the survey will be created on a desktop and conducted on a mobile device like tablet or an iPad. In the office, as a GIS analyst, my job is to create the surveys and make sure they work properly before publishing it out to the field staff. Here is the exact population survey for Switzerland. You see the typical type of questions related to name or address here, gender, marital status, and furthermore that there are controls that can be added to each individual question. These controls drive the actions or appearance of each question, like the required column, determines whether or not a question is required before the submission of the survey, or the appearance column that aids in the appearance of how the questions will look on your form. So if we take a look at some of these example questions, here is the first name and the family name here are simple text fields. However, you can add in a constraint that makes these required fields. You can make any question in your survey required so that respondents must answer it. The location 1 field, this is a geopoint field, and one that we think that is very important. By collecting data at the point location, this allows for further data analysis down the line. The location 2 question is also a geopoint, or is an example of a simple yes or no logic and a skip. If yes, then you can get a 1 or a series of additional questions. If no, then you can skip forward to the next section. This is captured in the relevancy column of our Excel spreadsheet by utilizing a formula. In the date of birth question, you can configure that in multiple ways. So we configure it here as a scroll wheel, or you can configure it as a calendar. The other way is by adding a simple text field, the same way you would see it in the original form. And the marital status is a select one or pick one. This question shows us how you can construct a pick list from choices. Note that we can also take advantage of the hint column, adding additional instructions to each individual question. All the pick lists and drop downs are driven by the Choices tab in the Excel portion here. Before publishing the survey to my organization, we can leverage Survey123 Connect application as a testing environment to make sure all the fields are configured properly and the inputs are validated here. We could spend a lot of time going through the survey and each individual question, but I think you get the idea on the importance of creating this survey up front. So now let's go ahead and check in with the field staff on collecting and using surveys.
So Kristen's given you the example of how to design the census questions and building those questions out and giving you the ability to identify which ones are required. Next, she's going to be showing you all of those questions in a mobile device and the ability to use those survey design questions with the logic built in, the smart logic that she talked about, and being able to use a Survey123 app out in the field to collect that information in a standard, consistent manner that's in line with the rules of our census questions. We also saw the ability to capture this information and have this information in multiple languages.
All right, thanks, Mark. So as Mark said, that you can have this ability and show this in multiple languages, and you can do that in the testing environment and the Excel spreadsheet like you saw, but also in the preview publishing and in your mobile application. And we will jump to that just here shortly. So I'm going to go ahead and quickly go through we already saw this workflow before within Workforce. So that tasking agent here, let's go ahead and start this. And because it is a survey type of task, we have the survey option now that pops up here. So it'll automatically open up and take you to that particular survey. And Mark mentioned some of the languages, and you saw that on the screen there in the Excel spreadsheet. But we can switch to some of that just to give you a preview of what it would look like here. And I'm working off of a Android device, a little bit of Chinese traditional, as well as some Arabic and Spanish. So these all you just all are configured within that Excel there. But this is the same information. If you look at the screen behind it, it is the exact same information that you see within your mobile device here. And then I'm just going to type in and fill in a couple of these fields. It automatically pulls in and knows where my location is, gives me my GPS coordinates, and here's that example of that yes or no, that skip logic. So yes, if you have a second place of residence, it'll add in another text field that you'll have to answer. If no, that field completely disappears for you. An example of that date of birth here. So here is that calendar. You can scroll in several different ways. If you click on the actual year, you can use the little scroll wheel and then choose a date. And then the gender is that pick one. And then the marital status would be that drop down here. So this is just some of the examples that of some of the questions that can be configured within that Excel application, or that Survey123 Connect application here. So I'm going to go ahead and submit this survey, and you have a couple of different options. Is the send later, send now, or you can continue. So if I said send later, it'll jump back out to my surveys and give me different types of options within that first content page here. We can start a new survey by the collect. We can use the inbox if you've been assigned existing survey data in the tasking process. Your outbox actually contains your save for later surveys there. And your sent ones are all the surveys that you've captured while you were out in the field during that time. So let's go ahead and send this right here. And now it's going to go through and grab all of that different data and send it up to my portal or my ArcGIS Online or my central location repository for this census results or for this survey results. So we went through the creation, we saw a portion of the mobile application, but how do we visualize and make sense of all this census data, all this information here? So you can utilize the Survey123 dashboard here. All that information gets sent into this dashboard. And as a field manager, you can quickly look into the results of the survey using this here. So you can get access by clicking on this thumbnail or clicking on any of these tabs here at the bottom. Just by clicking on that thumbnail, it'll open up to some general statistics into the survey. So anywhere from the total number of records to the last submitted record here. And you can even get what are the peak data capture times throughout the day, throughout the month, as well as the top participants submitting those particular surveys here. The Collaborate tab allows me to have control over who can submit the data to this survey, who can get access and link to the survey, as well as who can view the data of this survey, who can view my dashboard that I'm looking at. So you have controls on different access points here. And then by clicking the Analysis tab, it contains automatically generated charts and maps using the data pulled from your survey results, and they are visualized in a variety of different ways. So these are automatically generated as visual representations. So those could be word clouds, like those have most popular name, or what is the most popular language that is being selected is one of them, as well as different types of bar charts here. So if we scroll down to one that I like to show off in particular, so the marital status one is a good example because it has a variety of data. You can visualize in a column, in a bar chart, in a pie chart, or even get that distribution within a map, right? Where are all the categories distributed as. So this is a great way to survey information, aggregate this data quickly, and is one of the dashboard-like applications to visualize the data. But what about monitoring the progress of the field staff and the mission? So as the manager of these field crews, you get to witness firsthand the dedication of the enumerators. So when I have real-time access to that data that they are collecting, I get a great understanding on how things are going and where I might be running into issues. So internally within my organization, we can leverage Operations Dashboard to communicate that progress. It's used in the daily, the weekly, and even monthly status meetings to monitor what have you completed. So you can see here on the left-hand side, the total amount of completed surveys. So you're almost at 23% of completed surveys out of the little over 6,000 total surveys. And then what has been partially completed, not yet visited, no response follow-up, and what percentage has been refused here. What is the date to complete the survey? So having a time clock or a countdown clock is very important, or just knowing the progress on where you are within a particular area or commune is very important in the town, right? So 15 days to completion. So I better get myself in gear to get all of this data collected and meet my mission critical goals here. So where are we on some of the quality assurance steps, and where are we having issues so that you can help refocus those issues and get things back under control? And you can see there's couple of different types of visualizations here. One with the individual points of field locations symbolized by completed, partial, not yet visited, and no response follow-up and refused, paired with different types of charts in here and whether or not I've met my threshold here. So this is a dashboard that you can review every day. You can see how the individual country or city or district is doing as a whole. So for the first time, we have an operational dashboard that could provide us with provide an integrated view of all the different activities. I'm able to see all of the data in one place. I can make decisions based on a dashboard that provides situational awareness and ability to get more insight and visibility into your workflows and your data. Back to you, Mark.
All right, thank you, Kristen. That's a great dashboard to really get a window and a picture into what's going on across your survey. So again, we're going to give you a second chance here to do a poll question and get your feedback. Just tick the boxes that apply to your organization. In this case, you can select multiple items here. You can select base map or enumeration area mapping, or maybe using GIS for field collection, for operations management, dissemination, or none of the above. We're going to close this out here. And looks like it's being used primarily for base map and enumeration area mapping. Not surprisingly, but that's great, and we appreciate that feedback. And we're going to move to the last phase of census, and I'd like to take a look at the integration of GIS in the post-enumeration processes. This includes incorporating updates to the geodatabase and archiving, aggregating our data, including the geographic tabulations. For example, in the US, there's 11 levels of geographies to be tabulated. And as part of the tabulation data, indexing averages and disaggregating data, for example, by gender or age. But we also need to do this geographically. Finally, the most important part of the enumeration is the publishing of the results. Here, GIS is also playing a significant role in the creation of geographic census information products, including maps, atlases, reports, apps, and interactive websites. and the publishing and dissemination of those information products. For example, in the image on the right, we see Senegal National Statistics and Demography Agency disseminating poverty data for the first time in a GIS system, and marketing of those same information products. Additionally, lining up your data to the United Nations SDGs to support the commitments to measure, monitor, and report on the progress that each nation is committed to. Here we see GIS being used to disseminate results in two different representations. On the left, Statistics Canada. On the right, Mexico's National Institute for Statistics and Geography. So we have seen how the ArcGIS platform can be used in pre-enumeration, enumeration, and post-enumeration to deliver services that provide access in many ways through apps. We want you to know that Esri is committed to supporting the integration of geospatial and statistical data. This includes methodology in a new book to be published this summer by Esri Press on GIS and the 2020 census. This book speaks to the methods and best practices today for applying GIS in your work. There's also hands-on learning with exercises that accompany the book in the learn.arcgis.com that help you with capacity building. And of course, the technology that we've seen today. This technology is now available to many organizations in a new official statistical modernization program just announced by Esri on March 5th in conjunction with the United Nations 49th Statistical Commission. There are more than 75 qualifying countries. Each country's statistical office will receive 4 years of perpetual licenses of ArcGIS technology. Contact us at the survey at the end of this webinar to get more information. Today, we've seen how the ArcGIS platform supports the 3 National Statistical Office goals we set out in the beginning of the webinar. Leveraging technology, which empowers us to optimize our operations, and most importantly, providing the ability to deliver high-quality official statistics. Your official statistics, integrated with GIS, supplies the authoritative information to inform decision makers as they work to create a more sustainable world. So as we mentioned, this has been the first in a series, a webinar series called Making Census 2020 Count with GIS. Look for additional webinars this year on the link that you see there. And now we're going to open up for questions. If you have any questions, you can type them into the questions window and give you a minute to do that. So one question, and we hear this frequently, is if we're just getting started with GIS and our field staff, which app would be the best to configure and test first? I would say Collector for ArcGIS. Collector is a key app for your data collection and validation. Collector is often used in pre-enumeration planning and to collect buildings or household level data, as you saw in Kristen's demonstration. So another question is enumeration area validation is sometimes a difficult task. How would you recommend we use GIS to help us with this? Linda, as an expert in this area, do you want to take that question?
Sure, Mark. Yeah, thank you. Enumeration area planning is challenging, but ArcGIS can be used in the office with imagery to identify new settlement areas, as mentioned earlier in the presentation. The information can also be used to drive field validation efforts. I have another question coming in, Mark, from the field, and this is, how long does it take to configure a dashboard such as the one just shown? And can I make different dashboards for different managers? Kristen, could you help us with that one?
Oh, sure, of course. So it depends on the level of complexity that you have with your data. What your data? What is the condition of your data as well? That all takes into account. But just to give you a little bit of, I guess, a little bit of an idea, the dashboard that I showed today probably took me a good 2 days, 2 or 3 days to configure that type of dashboard there. Now you can configure the dashboard in any way that you want to view it. So whereas I had 2 separate maps in there, you could have 3, you could have 4, but you can also have different types of widgets and panels. So each individual ones that you saw there with the percentages and whatnot, we call those widgets. You can visualize the data in various different ways. And if you're interested, we can provide sample dashboards just to kind of give you guys some ideas of what other dashboards look like as well.
So
That's
Linda,
great.
we have, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that's great, Kristen. Thanks. I do see another question in the box related to enumeration areas, so maybe we can step back on that one. The question is how to create the best possible enumeration areas with limited data sources. The good news is the ArcGIS platform will let you create enumeration areas in many different ways. If, for example, you have existing boundaries from a previous census, you could use those to overlay on top of either a base map or imagery to try and create and modify those areas. If you don't have any existing boundaries, you can simply use seed points or geocodes if you have that data available. If not, another option is to use imagery, as we mentioned earlier, to try and extract rooftops and village settlements from that data.
All right, thank you, Linda. All right, I think that's all we have time for, and I would like to thank everyone for joining the webinar. And
Mark,
yes.
I'm sorry, we have one more question on a recommended mobile software for geotagging.
All right. Yeah, please, Linda, I'll let you go ahead and take that question.
Actually, sorry, I'm gonna ask Kristen maybe. So Kristen, if you're gonna do geotagging in the field, what would be your preference?
Geotagging in the field. So just to clarify, can you clarify that for me? Do you mean just
Sure.
doing?
Sure, basic geocoding, I think, similar to what you showed in Collector.
Ah, okay, yes. So for me, at least I have seen people will use Android devices, but also people can add in any type of they can use high accuracy add-ons to that mobile device as well. Now within the international community, I would definitely pass that over to Linda, but I do want to take note that any of the mobile applications that you have seen today are configurable on Android devices, some Google devices, as well as a Apple or iOS software there.
Yeah, good point, Kristen. And just to sort of close out on that, we see a lot of the work being done in the field being done in an offline mode, right? Satellite connectivity is not always easy. There are solutions, Esri partners that produce Bluetooth GPS, for example, that will work offline with no cellular connectivity because it's working off of the satellite system. So you can still get very high level accuracy using that Bluetooth device with your cellular smartphone or tablet using an application like Collector in the field. Mark, I'll throw it back to you. Thanks for that.
All right. No, thank you, Linda. Thank you, Kristen. And thank you, everyone on the webinar. We appreciate your time. We would ask you to just take a little bit of time and complete the survey at the end, and we can send you any information that you're interested from that. So again, thank you for your time, and look for future webinars in the series. Thank you, and we're going to sign off.